A 7-year-old boy walks into a police station with a backpack, and when the officers see what's inside, everyone in the room starts crying. The sky was gray and heavy that afternoon, as if the whole city was about to cry. It was 6:30 when the door of the San Roque police station creaked open. No one expected anything out of the ordinary. The day had been quiet, filled with paperwork and chatter about Saturday's soccer game. But then he walked in. A small boy, about 7 years old, with a faded blue backpack hanging from his skinny shoulders. His t-shirt was dirty, stained with mud and what looked like old juice. His pants, torn at the knees, were too big for him, as if they belonged to someone else. His sneakers were worn out with frayed laces. But what caught everyone's attention the most were his eyes, big, dark, and lifeless, as if something inside him had broken long ago. Sergeant Martinez, a burly man with gray hair and a face marked by years of sleepless nights, was behind the counter reviewing a report. He looked up and frowned. "What's this kid doing here?" he muttered to himself, setting his pen down on the desk. In the room, other officers noticed too. Officer Lopez, a young woman with her hair tied back in a tight ponytail, was sipping coffee in the corner. She stopped mid-sip and stared at the boy. Ramirez, a big guy who always talked about his dog, scratched his head, confused. Gonzalez, who was typing at her computer, stopped and turned her chair to get a better look. The boy didn't say anything at first. He just took a few short steps, as if he wasn't sure he should be there. His hands gripped the straps of the backpack tightly, like it was the only thing keeping him upright. The silence in the station grew heavier, broken only by the hum of the old ceiling fan. Martinez stood up, his chair creaking under his weight, and walked toward the boy. His boots echoed on the tiled floor. He crouched down in front of the kid, trying to look less intimidating, though his rough face didn't help much. "Hey, little guy, what's going on? Are you lost?" he asked, his voice trying to be soft but still sounding gruff. The boy shook his head, just a slight movement. His eyes didn't meet Martinez's. They stayed fixed on the floor as if he was scared to look up. "Then what are you doing here?" Martinez pressed, glancing quickly at the backpack. "Where are your parents?" Silence. The boy took a deep breath, a sigh that seemed too big for someone so small. Then, in a tiny voice, almost a whisper, he said, "I need help." Martinez blinked, caught off guard. Those 3 words weren't what he expected. They didn't sound like "I'm lost" or "I want water." There was something more there, something that put him on edge. He looked back at Lopez, who was already walking toward them, her coffee forgotten on the table. "Help with what, kid?" Lopez asked, standing beside Martinez. Her voice was warmer, calmer, but her eyes showed worry. The boy didn't answer right away. He stood still, staring at his worn-out sneakers. The backpack stayed pressed against his chest like a shield. Martinez and Lopez exchanged a look, unsure of what to do. It wasn't the first time a kid had walked into the station. Sometimes they came for lost dogs or because they ran away from home. But this was different. He wasn't crying, he didn't seem scared, just empty. "What's your name?" Martinez asked, trying a different approach. He thought starting with something simple might help. "Lucas," the boy said so quietly it was almost inaudible. "Lucas, that's a nice name," Lopez said, giving a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "How old are you, Lucas?" 7, he replied, looking up for the first time. His eyes met hers for just a second before dropping back to the floor. "7's a great age," Lopez said, trying to sound cheerful. "I have a nephew who's 7, and he's always running around everywhere." "Do you run a lot too?" Lucas didn't answer. He just gripped the backpack tighter. Lopez bit her lip, realizing her attempt at conversation wasn't working. Martinez scratched his chin, thinking. He'd seen a lot in his 20 years as a cop. Fights, thefts, tragedies. But this kid made him nervous in a way he couldn't explain. It wasn't just his dirty clothes or his sad face. It was something in the way he moved, the way he spoke, like he was carrying a weight no kid that age should have to bear. "Listen, Lucas," Martinez said, getting serious. "We're here to help you, okay? But we need you to tell us what's going on. Why did you come here?" Lucas swallowed hard. His fingers trembled a little on the straps of the backpack. He looked like he was gathering the courage to speak, but nothing came out. The officers waited, patient, though the air grew tenser with every second. Ramirez, who had walked over out of curiosity, couldn't take the silence anymore. "Hey kid, are you hungry?" he asked, his deep voice kind but loud. "We can get you something to eat if you want. There's a vending machine with chips out back." Lucas shook his head again. Ramirez scratched the back of his neck, thrown off. "What about water? Or a soda?" he tried. "No," Lucas said, his voice sharp. All right, Ramirez said, raising his hands like he was surrendering, just trying to help. Martinez shot Ramirez a look to shut him up, then he turned back to Lucas. "Look, kid, we're not going to force you to do anything, but if you need help, this is the place. We're cops, you know. We help people when they're in trouble." Lucas nodded, just a tiny movement, barely noticeable, but he still didn't say more. Lopez crossed her arms, starting to feel impatient, though she didn't show it. "Did you come here alone, Lucas?" she asked. "Did someone bring you?" "Alone," he answered, quick this time. "And how did you get here? Did you walk?" Lopez continued. Lucas nodded. "From where?" Martinez asked, frowning. The station was in a busy area, but it wasn't a place a 7-year-old would just walk to easily. Lucas shrugged. He didn't know how to explain, or he didn't want to. Martinez sighed, running a hand over his face. This wasn't going to be easy. "Hey, Ramirez," Martinez said, turning to him. "Go to the kitchen and get a glass of water at least, and some cookies if you can find any." Ramirez nodded and left, glad to have something to do. Lopez crouched down next to Martinez, looking at Lucas closely. "Are you tired, Lucas?" she asked. "You look exhausted." The boy didn't say anything, but his shoulders slumped even more, as if the question reminded him how tired he was. Lopez felt a pang in her chest. She wanted to hug him, but she knew it wasn't the right moment. Ramirez came back quickly, holding a glass of water in one hand and a pack of chocolate chip cookies in the other. "Here you go, kid," he said, setting them on the counter near Lucas. "They're the good ones with chocolate chips." Lucas looked at the cookies but didn't touch them. He didn't take the water either. Martinez was starting to lose his patience, though he didn't want to show it. "Lucas, look," he said, firm but calm. "I don't know what happened to you, but you came here for a reason, right? You said you need help. With what? If you don't tell us, we can't do anything." The boy looked up again, and this time he didn't look away so quickly. His eyes had a strange shine, like he was about to cry, but holding it back. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then spoke. "I don't know how to say it." Martinez and Lopez exchanged a surprised look. It was the first full sentence he'd said. "That's okay," Lopez said quickly. "Say it however you can. We'll understand." Lucas took another deep breath, a shaky sound that filled the room. The other officers, who had slowly gathered closer, were quiet, waiting. Gonzalez bit her nail, nervous. Ramirez crossed his arms, serious for once. "It's just—" Lucas started, but stopped. His hands gripped the backpack even tighter. "Is it something at home?" Martinez asked, trying to guide him. Lucas shook his head. "At school?" Lopez tried. Another shake of the head. "Did someone do something to you?" Martinez asked, lowering his voice as if he was afraid of the answer. Lucas didn't answer this time. Instead, he looked at the backpack, like the answer was inside it. Martinez noticed and frowned. "Is it something you brought with you?" he asked, pointing at the backpack. Lucas nodded slowly. Martinez's heart skipped a beat. There it was, finally, a thread to pull. "What's in there, kid?" Lopez asked, leaning a little closer. "It's important," Lucas said, his voice trembling. "Important how?" Martinez pressed. Lucas didn't answer with words. Instead, his hands let go of the straps for the first time. The backpack was still in his lap, but now it seemed heavier, like whatever was inside was about to come out on its own. "It's okay, Lucas," Lopez said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "If you want, we can look at it with you. You're not alone." The boy looked at her, and for a moment it seemed like he might say no. But then he nodded, just a tiny movement. Martinez felt a chill. He didn't know what he was expecting, but something told him he wasn't ready for this. "Here, put it up here," Martinez said, pointing to the counter. Lucas hesitated, staring at the backpack like it was the last thing he had in the world. Then, with shaky hands, he lifted it and placed it on the counter. The sound of the nylon against the wood was the only noise in the room. All the officers were around now, holding their breath. "Should we open it?" Lopez asked, looking at Martinez. Martinez nodded but looked at Lucas first. "Is that okay with you, kid?" Lucas swallowed hard and nodded again. Lopez reached for the zipper, but Martinez stopped her. "Let him do it," he said, serious. "It's his backpack." Lopez stepped back and everyone looked at Lucas. The boy took a deep breath, like he was preparing for something big. His small, dirty fingers found the zipper. The room was completely silent, only the hum of the fan and the pounding of their hearts audible. Lucas pulled the zipper, slowly, and when the backpack opened, the air changed. Something heavy, something real was about to come to light. The backpack sat open on the counter, but no one dared to touch it just yet. The zipper, frayed and half-broken, revealed a dark interior, as if it held something that didn't want to come out. Lucas, sitting on a chair that Martinez had pulled over, stared at the backpack with fixed eyes, his small hands trembling slightly in his lap. The police station, which just a while ago had been filled with murmurs and the clacking of Gonzalez's keyboard, was now completely silent. The fan hummed on the ceiling, but no one noticed. All eyes were on that little boy and what he had brought with him. Martinez scratched the back of his neck, uneasy. He'd seen a lot in his years as a cop: guns, drugs, stolen money. But this was different. He didn't know what to expect, and that made him nervous. "Lucas, kid," he said, breaking the silence with his gruff voice. "What's in there? You said it's important. Why?" Lucas didn't answer right away. His fingers fidgeted with a loose thread on his torn pants, like he needed something to keep himself busy. Then he looked up, just a little, and mumbled, "It's from my house." "From your house?" Lopez repeated, leaning forward. She was standing next to Martinez, arms crossed, trying to stay calm. "Something you brought from there?" Lucas nodded, just a slight movement. Martinez and Lopez exchanged a confused look. Ramirez, who was standing further back with Gonzalez, stepped forward. "Is it a toy or something?" he asked, his deep voice sounding almost hopeful. "A car? A doll?" "No," Lucas said, his tone sharp, and Ramirez stepped back, raising his hands. All right, just asking," he said, glancing at Martinez like he needed backup. Martinez sighed and crouched down in front of Lucas again, getting to his level. His knees creaked, but he didn't care. "Look, kid, we don't want to rush you, but if you came here asking for help, we need to know what you've got. Is it something that worries you? Something that scares you?" Lucas hesitated. His eyes darted quickly between Martinez and the backpack, as if he was deciding whether to trust them or not. Then, in a voice so low it was almost a whisper, he said, "It's from my parents." Lopez's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Martinez, who frowned, serious. "From your parents?" Martinez asked. "Where are they now, Lucas?" The boy didn't answer. He just lowered his head, and his shoulders slumped even more as if the question hurt him. Lopez felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what. The air in the room grew heavier, like everyone knew they were about to step into dark territory. "Hey, kid," Ramirez said, trying to lighten things up. "If it's something from your parents, it must be special, right? A gift or something like that?" Lucas shook his head slowly. Ramirez scratched his beard, thrown off. "Then what is it?" Gonzalez asked, speaking for the first time. She was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, one eyebrow raised. "Don't keep us guessing, kid." "I don't know how to explain it," Lucas said, and his voice trembled a little. "That's okay," Lopez said quickly. "You don't have to explain everything at once. How about you show us one thing first?" Lucas looked at her, hesitating. Then he nodded, just a small movement. Everyone held their breath as he reached a hand toward the backpack. His fingers, dirty and small, shook as they went inside. He pulled something out slowly, carefully, like he was afraid of breaking it. It was a photo, old, crumpled, with bent corners and stains that looked like water or tears. He placed it on the counter, and Martinez picked it up gently, turning it to see it better. It showed a family, a young man with a beard, a woman smiling, and a little boy, maybe 3 or 4 years old, with the same big eyes as Lucas. They were in a park, with green trees in the background and the sun shining. They looked happy, normal, but the photo was damaged, like it had been kept in a damp place for too long. "Are these your parents?" Lopez asked, her voice soft but tense. Lucas nodded. "And the little boy is you?" she continued, pointing at the child in the photo. "Yes," he said quietly. Martinez studied the photo a bit longer, then handed it to Lopez. She took it and looked at it closely, frowning. "What a nice family, Lucas," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "When was this photo taken?" "I don't know," he answered. "A long time ago." "A long time ago," Martinez repeated. "How long?" Lucas shrugged. He didn't want to or couldn't say more. Lopez set the photo down on the counter, carefully, like it was something fragile. "Okay, kid," Martinez said. "This photo means a lot to you, doesn't it?" "Yes," Lucas murmured. "Why did you bring it?" Lopez asked. Lucas didn't answer right away. His eyes went back to the backpack, and his hands clenched into small fists. Martinez felt a chill. That photo was just the beginning. He knew it. "Is there more in there?" he asked, pointing at the backpack. Lucas nodded slowly. "Do you want to take something else out?" Lopez said. "Only if you want to, okay?" The boy took a deep breath, a shaky sound that filled the room. Then he reached into the backpack again, searching for something. This time he pulled out a letter. It was a yellowish piece of paper, folded in 3, with worn edges. He handed it to Martinez with trembling hands. "What's this?" Martinez asked, unfolding the paper carefully. "It's from my mom," Lucas said, and his voice cracked a little. Martinez looked at the letter. The handwriting was shaky, written in blue ink that had smudged in some spots. He started reading out loud, though he wasn't sure if he should. "Dear Lucas, if you're reading this, it means we're not with you anymore. I'm so sorry, my love. Your dad and I love you more than anything in this world. Please be strong. We're leaving you with Aunt Marta. She'll take care of you. Always remember that we love you and we're proud of you. With all our love, Mom and Dad." Martinez stopped halfway through the letter, his voice caught in his throat. Lopez covered her mouth with one hand, her eyes filling with tears. Ramirez took a step back, like he wanted to escape what he'd just heard. Gonzalez lowered her head, pressing her lips together. Does this mean your parents?" Lopez started, but she couldn't finish. "They died," Lucas said, simple and direct, like he'd said it 1,000 times before. The silence that followed was deafening. Martinez set the letter down on the counter, his hands shaking a little. It wasn't the first time he'd seen tragedy, but hearing a 7-year-old say that with that broken calm hit him hard. "Lucas, I'm so sorry," Lopez said, wiping a tear with the back of her hand. "That must be so hard for you." The boy didn't answer. He just looked at the letter, like he wished the words would change. "When did it happen?" Martinez asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "A year ago," Lucas said. "In a car." "An accident?" Ramirez asked from the back. Lucas nodded. Ramirez let out a quiet, "Damn," and turned away, running a hand over his face. Martinez looked at the letter again, then at Lucas. "So now you're with your Aunt Marta?" he asked. "Yes," Lucas said, but his voice sounded weaker this time, like saying it cost him something. "Does she know you're here?" Lopez asked. "No," he answered quickly. The officers exchanged worried looks. A 7-year-old, alone, walking to the police station with a photo and a letter from his dead parents. Something wasn't right, and they all felt it. "Hey, kid," Ramirez said, stepping closer again. "Why didn't you tell your aunt you were coming? Wouldn't she have brought you?" Lucas shook his head, and his eyes got shiny, like he was about to cry but didn't want to. "She doesn't like it when I talk about my parents," he said, almost whispering. Martinez frowned. Lopez felt a bigger knot in her stomach. "What do you mean by that?" she asked gently. Lucas didn't answer. Instead, he reached into the backpack again. This time, he pulled out something small, a glass jar with a cork stopper. Inside were gray ashes. He set it on the counter, without saying a word. "What's that?" Ramirez asked, though his voice shook, like he already knew the answer. Lucas didn't say anything. He just looked at the jar. Lopez stepped closer, her heart racing. "Are those—" she started, but stopped, looking at Martinez. "Ashes," Martinez said quietly, confirming it. "Of your parents?" Gonzalez asked, her eyes wide. Lucas nodded, and a tear rolled down his cheek, leaving a clean streak on his dirty face. Lopez couldn't take it anymore and turned away, covering her face. Ramirez cursed again, louder this time. Gonzalez stepped closer to the jar but didn't touch it, like she was afraid of it. "My God, kid," Martinez said, running a hand over his face. "Why do you have this with you?" "So I don't forget them," Lucas said, and his voice broke completely. The air in the room turned thick, like no one knew what to say. Martinez looked at the jar, the letter, the photo. Everything was starting to paint a picture he didn't want to see. But there was still something more. The backpack wasn't empty. "Is there more, Lucas?" he asked, almost dreading the answer. Lucas nodded slowly. He reached into the backpack again, and this time he pulled out a small notebook with worn covers, full of childish scribbles. He opened it to a marked page and handed it to Martinez. "What's this?" Martinez asked, taking it. "It's mine," Lucas said. "I wrote it." Martinez opened the notebook, and the first lines hit him like a punch. The handwriting was messy, childlike, but the words were harsh, too harsh for a 7-year-old. "Today Aunt Marta hit me because I asked for food. She said there isn't any. I'm hungry." Martinez stopped reading, his throat tight. Lopez came closer, looking over his shoulder, and let out a low whimper. Ramirez and Gonzalez stood still, waiting, but they already knew what was coming was bad. "Lucas," Martinez started, but he couldn't go on. The boy didn't say anything. He just looked at the notebook, with tears falling silently. The backpack wasn't just a backpack. It was a piece of his broken life, and now everyone in the room could feel it in their chests. The notebook lay open on the counter, its crooked, harsh words staring at everyone like a slap in the face. Martinez slammed it shut as if he didn't want to see more. but the damage was already done. The police station, which just a while ago had been a workplace smelling of old coffee and paper, now felt like a graveyard. The jar of ashes, the letter, the crumpled photo, and that notebook full of childish scribbles were a weight none of the officers knew how to carry. Lucas, sitting on the chair with his legs dangling, stared at the floor. His tears fell silently, leaving marks on his worn-out sneakers. Lopez wiped her face with the sleeve of her uniform, trying to take a deep breath. Her eyes were red, and her voice shook when she spoke. "Lucas, kid, I'm so sorry." The boy didn't look up. He just wiped his nose with the back of his hand, a quick, clumsy motion. Martinez ran a hand through his gray hair, staring at the notebook like it was a bomb about to go off. Ramirez, who usually had something to say about everything, was quiet, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Gonzalez, still near the counter, tapped her fingers nervously, unsure of what to do. "What do we do with this?" Gonzalez muttered more to herself than to the others. Martinez looked at her, serious. "I don't know yet," he said, his voice low. "But we have to do something." "What does that mean?" Ramirez asked, stepping forward. "What did the kid write in there? What did he say about the aunt?" "I didn't read it all," Martinez admitted, his voice heavy. "But what I saw, it's not right." Lopez turned to Lucas, crouching down to his level. She tried to sound calm, though her face gave her away. "Lucas, can you tell us a little more?" she asked softly. "You don't have to say everything if you don't want to. Just whatever you can." Lucas shook his head quickly, his hands clenched into small fists on his lap. "I don't want to," he said, almost whispering. "That's okay. That's okay," Lopez said, raising her hands. "We won't make you, all right? No one's gonna force you." Martinez frowned but didn't say anything. He knew pushing a kid in that state wouldn't work. He looked at Ramirez and Gonzalez, who were waiting for some kind of direction. "Ramirez, go get a blanket or something," Martinez said. "It's cold in here and the kid's not dressed warmly." Ramirez nodded and left quickly, grateful to have something to do. Gonzalez stepped closer to Lopez, lowering her voice. "Do you think what he wrote is true?" she asked. "About the aunt, I mean." Lopez looked at her, her eyes still wet. "Why would a kid lie about something like that?" she replied sharply. "Look at him. Look at what he brought." Gonzalez bit her lip, glancing at Lucas. The boy was still quiet, head down like he wanted to disappear. The fan hummed on the ceiling, and the sound seemed louder now that no one was talking. Ramirez came back with a gray blanket, one of those they kept for emergencies. It was rough and smelled like mothballs, but it was all they had. "Here you go, kid," he said, draping it over Lucas's shoulders. "It's not much, but it'll keep you warm." Lucas didn't move at first, but then he grabbed the blanket with one hand and adjusted it a little. He didn't say thank you, but Ramirez didn't expect him to. "Hey, Martinez," Ramirez said, turning to the sergeant. "Shouldn't we call someone? Social services or something?" "Yeah, but not now," Martinez replied firm. "It's late. No one's coming at this hour, and I'm not letting the kid go with just anyone until we know what's going on." "So what then?" Gonzalez asked. "He stays here all night?" "If that's what it takes, yes," Martinez said. "I'm not sending him back to that aunt until we know more." Lopez nodded, agreeing. "We can't take the risk," she said. "If what he wrote is true, that woman shouldn't be anywhere near him." Lucas looked up for the first time in a while, staring at Lopez. His eyes were shiny with tears, but there was something else there too. Fear, or maybe hope, or both. "I don't want to go back," he said, his voice low. The officers froze. It was the first time Lucas had said something without being asked. Martinez crouched down again, facing him. "Why don't you want to go back, kid?" he asked, his voice calm but serious. What happens at your house? Lucas hesitated. His lips trembled, like he wanted to speak but didn't know how. Then he shook his head again and looked down. It's okay, Lopez said quickly. You don't have to say it now, but you're safe here, all right? No one's sending you anywhere tonight. Ramirez scratched his head, confused. So what do we do in the meantime? He asked. We can't just sit here staring at him all night. We can start by getting him something to eat, Gonzalez said, pointing at the cookies Ramirez had brought earlier. Those are still there, and he hasn't touched anything. Martinez glanced at the cookies, still in their open pack on the counter. Lucas, are you hungry? He asked. The boy shrugged, a gesture that was becoming familiar. Lopez picked up the pack and brought it closer to him. Just one, okay? She said, offering him a chocolate chip cookie. It won't hurt to eat one. Lucas looked at the cookie for a while, like he wasn't sure. Then he took it with shaky fingers and took a small bite. He chewed slowly, not looking up. Good, Martinez said with a slight nod. That's something. Gonzalez walked over to the counter and picked up the notebook again, opening it carefully. What are you doing? Ramirez asked, frowning. I want to read more, she said. If he doesn't want to talk, this is all we've got. Don't read it in front of him, Lopez said quickly. We don't know how he'll react. Gonzalez nodded and stepped away, taking the notebook to a corner. Martinez let her do it, though he wasn't sure if it was a good idea. Lopez stayed with Lucas, sitting beside him on another chair. Do you like the cookies? She asked, trying to sound casual. They're okay, Lucas said, his mouth full. I'm glad, she said, smiling a little. My nephew says these are the best. He always asks me to buy them. Lucas didn't reply, but he took another bite. Lopez watched him, noticing how his hands shook less now that he had something to focus on. Ramirez walked over to Martinez, lowering his voice. Boss, I don't like this, he said. The kid's in bad shape, you can tell. What do we do if what he wrote is as bad as it seems? We handle it, Martinez said, curt. Step by step. First, we keep him here, then we figure out what's next. What if the aunt shows up looking for him? Ramirez asked. Let her come, Martinez said, a hard glint in his eyes. I'd like to have a word with her. Ramirez swallowed, nodding. Gonzalez came back from the corner, the notebook in her hand, her face pale. What's wrong? Lopez asked, seeing her. It's heavy, Gonzalez said quietly. There's more in there. I don't know if we should read it all right now. Give it to me, Martinez said, holding out his hand. Gonzalez hesitated, but handed it over. Martinez opened the notebook again, flipping through the pages slowly. He read in silence, and his face hardened with every line. Lopez watched him, worried. What does it say? She asked. Not now, Martinez said, closing it again. Not in front of him. Lucas looked at them like he knew they were talking about him. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying anymore. He finished the cookie and wiped his hands on his pants. You okay, kid? Lopez asked. Lucas nodded, just a small movement. Want another? She said, offering the pack. No, he said, his voice firmer this time. Martinez walked over to the counter and placed the notebook next to the backpack, out of Lucas's reach. Then he turned to Ramirez. Go to the kitchen and heat some water, he said. We'll make him some tea or something warm. This can't go on like this. Ramirez left again, and Gonzalez stayed, watching Lucas. How did you get here, kid? She asked. Did you walk all by yourself? Yes, Lucas said. From where? She pressed. I don't know, he replied. Far. Far how much? Lopez asked. Half an hour, an hour. I don't know, Lucas repeated, his voice fading. Martinez sighed, running a hand over his face. This was like pulling water from a stone, but they couldn't give up. Ramirez came back with a steaming mug, a chamomile tea he'd found in a drawer. "Here, kid," he said, setting it in front of Lucas. "Careful, it's hot." Lucas looked at the mug but didn't touch it. Lopez slid it a little closer. "Just a sip," she said. "It'll calm you down." Lucas took the mug with both hands, trembling a bit. He took a small sip and set it back down. "Thanks," he said, so quietly it was almost inaudible. The officers exchanged a surprised look. It was the first time he'd said thank you. Lopez smiled, though her eyes were still wet. "You're welcome, kid," she said. "We're here for you." Martinez crouched down in front of Lucas. Again. "Lucas, listen," he said, serious but gentle. "You brought us these things, the photo, the letter, the ashes, the notebook. You came here asking for help. Why? What do you need us to do?" Lucas looked at him, and for the first time, his eyes stayed fixed on Martinez's. There was fear there, but also something else, like he wanted to let it all out but didn't know how to start. "I don't want to be alone," he said, and his voice cracked. "You're not alone," Lopez said quickly. "We're with you now." "But," Lucas started, then stopped, looking at the backpack. "But what?" Martinez asked, leaning closer. Lucas took a deep breath, a shaky sound that filled the room. Then he spoke, and his words fell like stones. "My parents died in a crash. I went to live with Aunt Marta, but she hates me. She hits me, doesn't give me food. Sometimes she kicks me out on the street. I came because I can't take it anymore. I want to be with my parents, but I can't." The silence that followed was brutal. Lopez covered her mouth, tears falling again. Ramirez let out a "son of a" and turned away, slamming his palm against the wall. Gonzalez dropped the pen she was holding, and Martinez felt the air leave his chest. Lucas lowered his head, trembling, like saying it had broken him completely. The room was filled with sadness, and no one knew what to say. Lucas's pain was there, raw and real, and now they all felt it with him. Lucas's confession had left the police station in a silence that weighed like lead. His words, "She hits me, doesn't give me food, sometimes she kicks me out on the street," still echoed in everyone's minds. Martinez stood by the counter, hands in his pockets, staring at the backpack like he wanted to burn it. Lopez sat next to Lucas, a hand on his shoulder, unsure if she was comforting him or herself. Ramirez paced back and forth, muttering curses under his breath, and Gonzalez tapped her fingers on the desk, nervous. Lucas's tea sat cooling in the mug, untouched after that first sip. No one knew what to say. The notebook, the letter, the ashes, all of that was already a lot, but hearing the boy talk about his aunt in that broken voice had been the final blow. Martinez broke the silence, his voice rougher than usual. "This isn't staying like this," he said, looking at the others. "We can't let it slide." "What do we do, boss?" Ramirez asked, stopping his pacing. "Call someone right now?" "No," Martinez said firm. "It's late. Social services won't send anyone at this hour, and I'm not moving the kid until we know what's next." "So what then?" Gonzalez asked, raising an eyebrow. "We just sit here?" "No," Martinez replied. "We'll do something, but first we need more. Lucas, kid, is there anything else you want to tell us?" Lucas shook his head quickly, eyes fixed on the floor. Lopez squeezed his shoulder gently. "It's okay, don't worry," she said. "You've already said a lot, and you're so brave for that." Ramirez scratched his beard, still restless. "I don't like this, boss," he said. "The kid said the aunt kicks him out on the street. What if she's out there looking for him right now?" "Let her come," Martinez said, a hard glint in his eyes. "I'd like to see her in person." Gonzalez let out a dry chuckle. "Man, I wouldn't want to be her if she runs into you," she said, but her voice held no humor. Lopez looked at Lucas, who was still quiet, wrapped in the rough blanket Ramirez had given him. "Lucas, do you think your aunt knows you came?" "Here," she asked softly. I don't know, he said, his voice low. I didn't tell her anything. And how did you get out of the house? Ramirez asked. Did you sneak out? Lucas nodded. Just a small movement. She was sleeping, he murmured. I went out through the window. The officers exchanged a surprised look. Martinez frowned. Through the window? He repeated. What floor do you live on, kid? The first one, Lucas said. It's not high. Even so, Lopez said, her eyes wide. That's dangerous. What if you fell? I didn't fall, he replied simply. Ramirez let out a low whistle. You're a little ninja, huh? He said, trying to lighten the mood, but no one smiled. Martinez walked over to the counter and picked up the notebook again, flipping through it silently. Lucas's words were there, scribbled in pencil, and each line felt like a knife. Lopez saw him and shook her head. Don't read it now, boss, she said quietly. Not in front of him. You're right, Martinez said, closing it and setting it aside. But this doesn't stay on paper. We're going to move. Move how? Gonzalez asked. What do we do with him? He stays here tonight, Martinez said. No discussion. Ramirez, get a mattress from the break room. Lopez, find something else to eat. Something warm if you can. Gonzalez, call Central and let them know we've got a minor in temporary custody. Don't give details yet. The three nodded and got to work. Ramirez left quickly, muttering something about how uncomfortable those mattresses were. Gonzalez grabbed the phone on the counter and started dialing, while Lopez stood up. I'll see what's in the kitchen, she said, looking at Lucas. Do you like soup, kid? Lucas shrugged but nodded a little. Lopez smiled, though her eyes were still wet. Soup it is then, she said, and left. Martinez stayed alone with Lucas, watching him from the other side of the counter. The boy looked smaller now, wrapped in the blanket, his legs dangling off the chair. Martinez sighed and walked over, sitting beside him. Hey, kid, he said softly. I know this is hard, but you did the right thing coming here. You know that, right? Lucas didn't answer, but he looked up for a second, meeting Martinez's eyes. Martinez continued. When my daughter was little, she always told me cops were like superheroes, he said, with a half smile. I don't think that's all true, but tonight we're going to try to be that for you, okay? Lucas nodded, just a tiny movement. Martinez felt a knot in his chest, but ignored it. Ramirez came back dragging an old mattress, a crumpled sheet on top. This is the best we've got, he said, dropping it in a corner. Not a 5-star hotel, but it'll do. It's fine, Martinez said. Set it up near the office, so it's not too exposed. Ramirez nodded and started moving it. Gonzalez hung up the phone and walked over. Central says it's okay for now, she said, but they want a full report first thing tomorrow. Let them wait, Martinez said. We're not rushing this. Lopez returned with a tray, a steaming bowl of noodle soup and a plastic spoon. The smell filled the room, and Ramirez sniffed the air. Smells good, he said. Any more for us? Don't be greedy, Lopez replied, laughing a little for the first time that night. This is for Lucas. She set the tray in front of the boy, who looked at it like he didn't know what to do. Here, kid, she said. It's hot, but it won't burn you. Eat slowly. Lucas picked up the spoon and took a small bite, moving slowly. The officers watched him, relieved to see him eat something more than a cookie. But the relief didn't last long. Lopez, who had gone back to the counter, checked the backpack again, more out of nerves than anything else. Her fingers brushed, something in a side pocket, a small envelope they hadn't noticed before. She pulled it out, frowning. What's that? Gonzalez asked, walking over. I don't know, Lopez said, opening it carefully. Inside was a note, written in the same shaky handwriting as the notebook. Lopez read it silently, and her face changed. Her eyes widened, and she dropped the envelope onto the counter. "Martinez," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to see this." Martinez stood up quickly, leaving Lucas with the soup. "What's going on?" he asked, taking the note. He read it out loud, though his voice broke halfway through. "Help my little sister. The aunt hits her too. She's alone at the house." The silence returned, heavier than ever. Ramirez stopped moving the mattress and turned, his mouth open. Gonzalez let out a quiet, "What?" and Lopez covered her face with her hands. "Little sister," Martinez said, looking at Lucas. "You have a sister?" Lucas nodded, the spoon halfway to his mouth. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Lopez asked, almost shouting, though she didn't mean to. "You didn't ask," Lucas said simply, and looked down again. Martinez felt the ground shift beneath him. A sister, another child in that house with that woman. He looked at the note again, like he wanted the words to change. "How old is she?" he asked, his voice firm. 4, Lucas said. "My God," Gonzalez muttered, running a hand through her hair. Ramirez stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Boss, we have to go get her," he said. "Right now." "Hold on," Martinez said, raising a hand. "We need to think this through." "Think what?" Ramirez asked, raising his voice. "There's a 4-year-old girl back there with that crazy woman. The kid said she hits her." "I know," Martinez said, sharp. "But we can't just run in without a plan. We need an address, a strategy." Lucas looked up, his eyes wide. "Don't let her get hurt," he said, his voice shaking. "Please." "Nothing's going to happen, kid," Lopez said quickly, crouching beside him. "I promise." "Where does your aunt live, Lucas?" Martinez asked, pulling a notepad from his pocket. "Tell me the street, the number, anything you know." "It's on Larga Street," Lucas said. "I don't know the number. There's a big tree outside." Martinez wrote quickly, looking at Gonzalez. "Do you know where that is?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "It's near the old market. Run-down houses all crammed together. There's a big tree on the corner." "Good," Martinez said. "We're going." "Who's going?" Ramirez asked. "You and me," Martinez replied. "Lopez, you stay with Lucas. Gonzalez, let Central know we're making a visit. Don't say why yet." Gonzalez nodded and ran to the phone. Ramirez looked at Martinez, serious. "What if the aunt gets difficult?" he asked. "We'll handle it," Martinez said, cold. "But we're not wasting time." Lopez stayed with Lucas, holding his hand. "Don't worry, kid," she said. "We're going to bring your little sister here with you." Lucas looked at her, fresh tears in his eyes. "For real?" he asked. "For real," she said, squeezing his hand. Martinez and Ramirez put on their vests quickly, checking their radios. Gonzalez hung up the phone and walked over. "Central says it's fine, but they want details later," she said. "Let them wait," Martinez said again. "Let's go, Ramirez." They left quickly, leaving the station in a tense silence. Lopez stayed with Lucas, watching him eat the soup slowly. "Everything's going to be okay," she said, more to herself than to him. 20 minutes passed, feeling like hours. Lucas finished the soup and sat still, wrapped in the blanket. Lopez didn't know what to say, so she just ran her fingers gently through his hair. Gonzalez paced, glancing at the clock. Finally, the door opened. Martinez walked in first, his face serious but relieved. Ramirez followed, carrying a small girl in his arms. She was thin, her hair tangled, wearing a dirty dress. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying a lot. "Sophia!" Lucas shouted, jumping off the chair. The girl saw him and reached out, crying. "Lucas," she said, her voice weak but desperate. Ramirez set her down carefully, and the two ran to each other, hugging tightly. They clung to one another, trembling as tears fell. Lopez turned away, covering her mouth. Gonzalez dropped her head, and Martinez looked away, his eyes wet. "She's okay now," Martinez said quietly. "We got her." "What happened with the aunt?" Lopez asked, wiping her face. "She's in custody," Ramirez said with a grimace. "She tried to fight, but it didn't go well for her." Lucas and Sofia stayed hugging on the floor, not letting go. The officers watched them, their hearts heavy. The night wasn't over, but for now, the siblings were together again.